The COVID-19 pandemic has brought to our lives stressful distancing and isolation, disruptive border lockdowns, and a general sense of despair and confusion. It has also illuminated deep transformations within traditional nation-state sovereignties. These range from controlling territorial borders, checkpoints, and other elements of security infrastructure to developing new tools, means, and mechanisms of crisis governance. In the words of American feminist scholar Judith Butler, our lives have become more and more precarious. But so have nation-state sovereignties. The pandemic crisis has revealed mass public mistrust towards moral, intellectual, and political leadership across the globe. At the same time, the pandemic has brought about new practices of social solidarity, self-help, and responsible conduct, while changing economic habits, educational experiences, lifestyles, and consumption during the forced lockdown.
The concept of biopolitics and biopower definitely need to be considered as very powerful explanatory tools of the ongoing emergency. The idea of biopolitics offers a variety of visions of the nexus of politics and medicine. Biopolitics as a concept refers to structural conditions that make possible and even necessary the inclusion of human lives, issues of healthcare, reproductive behavior, and sexuality into the sphere of political calculations and agendas. Biopower is a set of practices aimed at differentiation of lives as objects of political management and administration of human bodies. Biopower is relatively autonomous of other forms of power and therefore might be compatible with any type of political institutions, from liberal to illiberal. The French political philosopher Michel Foucault has tried to explicate biopower as a part of the liberal order, while his Italian colleague Giorgio Agamben, not less convincingly, unpacked the totalitarian potential of biopower. The common denominator of all models of biopower is the acknowledgement of the biopolitical nature of national sovereignties. In other words, as their main function, public authorities are supposed to protect people's lives and take care of their health conditions, which usually correspond with societal demands.
Based on these polarized interpretations of biopower, we could imagine two opposing biopolitical scenarios playing out. The first scenario, located on the totalitarian flank of the biopolitical spectrum, might be called bad weather politics, since it gradually but steadily expands the space for reactionary politics of surveillance, control, bans, and restrictions. In mass culture, particularly in fiction films, there are many depictions of post-pandemic futures as a balance between anarchy and dictatorship. Health security and biopolitical securitization are key words used to describe this scenario, characterized at its core by exceptional measures introduced by states. This biopolitics of emergency emerges from the natural fear of death, which is introjected and used to legitimate various forms of control over life. Along the lines of Foucault's prediction, the unexamined and undisciplined life becomes a threat to the normative foundations of power. Law transforms and adjusts to the factual state of affairs, which in due course normalizes exceptional measures. All this might even happen without a need for orders from a sovereign. Society itself could adjust to the new instruments of control and legitimize them through acceptance. A good example at this juncture is the concept of immunization. From a medical perspective, it is an individual act. Yet it has become a political category extended to the whole body of the population. Along the lines of Roberto Esposito's theory, the immune paradigm is the mechanism through which the political body is protected, by analogy to the immune protection of the biological body. Yet this humanitarian function has its price. It reduces the population to a biopolitical mass, or a collective flesh, as some thinkers metaphorically claim. Correspondingly, politics, and therefore relations of power, are reduced to caretaking and the protection of human lives against deadly threats. Yet, in order for life to be preserved and protected, it has to be stripped to its bare status, to the pure nakedness of its biological existence. On the opposite flank, we may find a different scenario, in which sovereignty tends to merge with practices of neoliberal governmentality. Under this model, key resources of biopower are managerial, administrative, and technical. They include both medical knowledge and expertise. Apart from national governments, the main actors of anti-pandemic governmentality are global practitioners, the World Health Organization and vaccine producers, alongside global NGOs such as Doctors Without Borders. With regard to the global transportation industry, for example, new rules and procedures applicable to the pandemic are developed by the International Air Transportation Association. For the governmentality scenario, two concepts are central. The first concept, resilience, is at the core of the governmental practices of emergency preparedness. Resilience in this framework is characterized by the endurance of democratic mechanisms, the sustainability of welfare institutions, and population-level mechanisms of socio-cultural adaptation of the state of alert. The second concept is centered around citizens' social responsibility, or what Michel Foucault called technologies of responsibilization. Responsibilization presumes that people are considered capable of governing themselves if they are prepared to take the responsibility for their own choices and actions. It also implies governmental praxis that operates through autonomy of individuals, while simultaneously appealing to the individual responsibility-taking, independent self-steering, self-care, and self-discipline. As critics point out, however, responsibilization implies a sort of therapeutic politics that turns structural issues into individual choices based on self-management. This might imply shifting responsibility for crisis management from governments to societies, including in the sphere of public finances.
Of course, between these two scenarios, one more totalitarian, the other more neoliberal, one may find a variety of hybrid forms of biopolitics, yet all variations presuppose transformations within the liberal paradigm of society, which some scholars characterize as post-liberalism. This concept implies an intricate oscillation between rejection and transformation of liberal principles. The COVID-19 crisis has demonstrated a fragile balance between liberal and illiberal forces in the world, which has created fertile ground for a new form of populism, biopopulism. Biopopulism draws an important divide between authentic and so-called full-fledged people on the one hand, and those groups that are not consensually considered as legitimately belonging to the national political community in the making on the other. Biopopulism could underlie the revitalization of nationalism in forms of so-called biopolitical sovereignty with the advent of biocracy, a state ruled and governed by the imperatives of biopower. Such power is aimed at fundamentally controlling human life, replacing the self-interested liberal subject with the so-called biohuman. Biopoliticization of populism might take radical forms of exclusion, denying the belonging, and even dehumanization, which lead to consequences of the current debate of the new global order and its political subjects. Biopopulism takes full advantage of sharp deficit of accurate scientific information that is indispensable for undertaking tough political decisions, which restricts freedoms in order to save lives. This sense of existential uncertainty raises questions regarding how much extant medical knowledge can contribute to the legitimization of states of emergency and the justification of extraordinary measures. We have seen a variety of examples where, based on similar scientific expertise, different governments have adopted dissimilar measures for the containment of the virus. Clearly, scientific information can be interpreted in different ways and manipulated for political purposes. Therefore, on the one hand, the seriousness of the threat has stimulated the demand for rapid and credible public knowledge, and the COVID-19 crisis has boosted the status of experts in policy debates. But on the other hand, the pandemic has created new spaces for biopolitical populism and conspiratorial thinking, which needs to be approached as a new element of the ongoing post-truth debates.
The pandemic has reactualized a delicate link between medical science and public politics. Although the former is still considered a reliable source of information, its trustworthiness is regularly questioned by a variety of COVID dissidents. Under these conditions, we can expect that resistance to biopolitical regimes of governance, in either a totalitarian or neoliberal form, will come from grassroots societal groups. These groups might represent a specific expression of what Hart and Negri called the multitude, a highly heterogeneous combination of believers in conspiracy theories and libertarian defenders of the autonomy of individual human bodies from state interventions, particularly in the medical sphere. The politicization of the anti-mask, anti-vaccination movement across the globe expands the space for what Foucault dubbed anatomopolitics, where individual bodies would matter more than collective bodies of nations, ethnic groups, or empires. These new cleavages and splits within society are exactly what transform biopolitics from an academic concept to a matter of everyday life.